Welcome back, adventurer. This week's creatures have been described as the fortune-telling ghost child of your dreams, a bird with an octopus caught in its throat, and a tree with snakes for branches. So come, pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Adventurer, back again? We'll have to get you a punch card. 3 more visits, and you'll get a pint on the house. I want to make it clear that that was a joke, by the way. Please do not be telling folks I'm handing out pints. Alright, I'll hand out 1, but only for you. And while you're mulling over your choice of future free drink, I'll get started with our first creature for the week, the Drekavac, from Slavic folklore. Although you may have heard it go by the name Drekavac, Crackling, Drekavac, or Shrikavac. But for this telling, we'll stick with Drekavac. That seems to be the only one I can pronounce. And that translates to screamer or screecher, though I have heard others say the name's born from the Slavic word drek, which means cry or wail, not the animal. No matter the translation, Drekavac are eternally tied to the cries of the dead, it seems. This is a creature with quite the haunting history. Found a good few old tomes that claim Drekavac were originally thought to be the souls of sinful men, or the result of children who died without being baptized. But over time, this creature's visage has mutated. Some folks I spoke with spilled tales of Drekavac as undead men who rise from the grave to haunt the living, while others combine these legends, claiming Drekavac are indeed unbaptized children, but they rise from the grave, forced to haunt their former parents. And some folks even claim that at night, if you pass by the cemetery this child's buried in, you can hear them begging to be baptized, so they can shift off this mortal coil. This transparent child is typically described as resembling that of your average child, but with a few distorted features, such as larger than average eyes, or a gaunt, emaciated frame, with skin so pale you can almost see the outline of bones pressed into their starved shape. If you're not a fan of whispering child apparitions, don't worry, that might not be the version you encounter. Documents on what the Drekavac look like differ from region to region, and as always, your reliable tavernkeeper has come well prepared. In eastern Siberia, the Drekavac is written as more lichen-like. Locals said they take the form of a humanoid. They walk upright like yourself, but with distinct canine features strewn across the frame. In the town of Maglaj, they have an entirely unique take on the Drekavac. They said these cryptids ain't children or canine of any sort. Instead, they're ghosts of soldiers, victims of combat, returned to haunt those unlucky enough to avoid a similar fate. In Kazorkska, folks describe the Drekavac as a vampire-like creature. Didn't say if that means it drinks blood, or if it's just got the look of one. The locals of Aurelia spin a curious tale of Drekavac with unnervingly long legs, and necks with a cat head sat atop. In Tredakazupa, the creatures are known to have only one leg and glowing eyes. In Guza, lore depicts the Drekavac as having a spindly little body, stretched out, with a dappled complexion. Its head is disproportionately large, and even though there's been no sign of this talent, at least so far, they say it definitely can't fly. And in the towns of Prijipol, Lesak, and Drekavac, it's a spectre, able to take the form of a spotted bird, dog, cat, or non-spotted bird. Modern tellings seem to agree with that last depiction. They call it a child phantom, with perfectly normal proportions, and the odd dog or bird feature tossed into the mix. To find a Drekavac, You could take a road trip tour of every Slavic town I just mentioned and see where the beastie pops up. But if you're more of a direct path kind of adventurer, then you'll want to head straight to a village I will now attempt to pronounce. Kraviga Tomtino Pio. Or any village located in the mountains of, and I'm going to try this one as well, Zlatbor. I hope I wasn't too far off. After speaking with locals from all over the place, it seems these areas have the most frequent sightings. Once you've arrived, Drekavac are said to drift about graveyards and quiet villages. Basically, all the creepiest spots you can think of. I'm honestly surprised they don't pop up in abandoned med wards or spooky woods. I can see you've got your eyes darting over a map there, but before you go, you'll need to know what this foggy bird boy's capable of. Suppose you could always find out firsthand, but then what would I do without my favourite patron? So listen up. To raise the creep factor, Drekavac are only said to appear during the night, with encounters increasing rapidly during the winter months. Some folks even say Drekavac aren't just fans of the night, but are only able to be seen during it. Perhaps some sort of moonlight magic is at play there. The lore on that was a bit thin. Though it did say in a depressing twist that Drekavac continue to display that childlike excitement for Christmas, even in death. And during the 12 nights of Christmas, your odds of running into one skyrocket. Maybe pack a sweet little Santa suit for the kid. Deadly child ghosts need a little cheering up too. If the plan works, and you manage to lure the ghost child out, take note of its form. If it looks like a kid, no dog, cat or bird features, then its presence means death will soon follow. If the spook looks a little off, maybe it's got a beak or a tail, or perhaps it's morphed entirely to resemble the true animal, then your life's not in danger. But any cattle are in for a devastating bout of disease. Had a farmer in the day said he believes a Drekavac's company signals a poor harvest or death of livestock. He wasn't so much scared of them as he was annoyed. Like the mice and antelope weren't trouble enough. But not everyone shares this laid-back impression of Drekavac. Most of the folks gave me far dangerous fables. A lot of them mentioned its cry, said its supernatural scream sounds like a child's mournful cry, mixed with a beast's roar. And that it's a signal of impending doom or tragedy that'll flood your brain with a paralysing dread. Or worse, that this desperate cry brings death to all who hear it. And you won't die straight away. That'll arrive in a form you won't expect. Could be you're run down by a wagon, or trip into a well. There's no surefire way to tell how you'll go, or how to stop it. Once you've heard the wail, your name gets a fast pass for the death queue. And if you think you can escape this haunting howl by simply keeping your distance, think again. Unlike your regular crying child, Drekavac wails act unlike any other sound I've ever read about. They echo across the hills for leagues, seemingly unaffected by the usual forces that weaken audible vibrations. Or it'll sound like they're right behind you. You'd swear you even felt their breath on your ear, till you spin round to find nothing. Not even the breeze. Well, if you cover your ears, perhaps. That'll work to fend off the sound, but it won't help protect you against its shadow. Legend says this is one of those rare ghosts that manages to walk about at 50% opacity and somehow still cast a shadow. And if this impossible shadow were to fall upon yourself or a party member, that person will slowly be taken ill. And it'll continue to worsen over time till they drop dead of disease. Much like the cattle from earlier. On the bright side, it doesn't say how long or how agonising the process is. You could have quite a good few years left. Or like a hangover in your 30s, you might end up begging for death. So maybe you're thinking you'll avoid Casper the death-bringing ghost altogether. Send a few party members off to handle the dirty work while you collect the bounty. Well, I think you can see where this is going. That ain't gonna work either. Not satisfied with their control over plague and death, Drekavac are said to be rather accomplished dream walkers, and that encountering one in a dream is known by many to precede an actual encounter in the physical realm. By the way, you haven't recently bullied any children, have you? I only ask because if you have, and then one of them died, only to return as a Drekavac, then a spooky meet-cute will be the least of your worries. Folks say anyone who harmed a Drekavac during the mortal years will be strangled by the creature in their sleep. So yeah, there's at least one reason not to bully a child. In every telling, run-ins with Drekavac are closely followed by hardship, disease and death. These forces drape down the creature's back, hanging like a cursed cloak. And this has led many to view them as harbingers of death or misfortune. Now I reckon you'll fancy a few tips on how to deal with this unruly kid spirit. Although some stories say Drekavac haunt their parents, they aren't known to harm them. So if the Drekavac you're tracking is your kin, you'll be fine. And if it's not, why not see if you could adopt the kid? I've never done it myself, so I'm a little fuzzy on the rules. Might be the child's gotta still be alive for this to work, but it's worth a shot. And if you ain't ready to be a parent, but still want protection, then I've got just the tip for you. Folks say, and my research confirms, that Drekavac have a pretty strong aversion to bright light and dogs. So get yourself a few torches and a pooch pal before you head out. They'll keep the Drekavac at bay and help bring down the overall creep factor by quite a lot. Lastly, you can always show a little mercy and just baptise the kid. They're literally begging for it. Aye, it'll mean you gotta come face to face with this spooky little boy bird dog boy, so you might suffer death's omen. But releasing the creature that caused it might just release you from death's icy grasp. There wasn't any law to back this up, but the theory does stand to reason. And speaking of dogs, I've just seen the most handsome pooch grace this humble tavern. I'll see if he's up for a trip to Slovakia. Hey listener, it's me here, your Tavernkeeper. Welcome back to the Advert Void, where I do all my begging. As always, thanks for listening to the show. It really helps a lot. And if you want to help even more, go ahead and like and subscribe. That really helps me know that I've got people out there that are listening to the show. And if you use social media, like not many people do, it's this little niche thing, but if you do happen to be one of the people that use it, give the show a share. I really appreciate it. Get the word out there. Let's get more folks in this tavern. And I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. I gotta write this down next time. Let's get away from all this and get you back to the tavern. You're not going to believe this adventurer, but he just got back from Slovakia. Let's get your mind off this devastating news with a tale of our next creature for the week, the Snallygaster from German folklore. Originally, this creature was named the Schnellgeist, which translates to quick ghost. It adopted the name Snallygaster as its presence grew more threatening in America. It's described as a bird reptile, or by some lore, dragon chimera. It's got the cold, scaly body of a lizard, but with clumps of feathers jutting out in odd and unusual places. Sprouting from its back, you'll see two wings, so enormous, the shadow alone is said to carry an impending sense of dread. Rumoured to be more bat than bird, great black leathery membranes. Folks call them its demon feature. In place of scaly shoes, it's got razor-sharp talons, like that of a deadly aerial predator. Looking up, you'll see its long, elegant neck, stolen from a swan, with a long pointed bill said to be almost metallic and lined with teeth, each one refined to an impossible point. But most unusual of all is what you'll find released from its hardened maw. The pictures I've seen of the beast make it look like it's tried to swallow a squid whole, but only managed its head, as long, slick, writhing tentacles dangle from its beak in a display I can only describe as rather eldritch. Curiously, some folks say these are actual tentacles, reaching up and out from the shadow of the creature's throat, while others fight for tellings that say this mass of undulating feelers make up its tongue. And to aid those folks, I did come across a few records that say these oceanic limbs are coloured a pinky red. Sounds like they're a tongue to me, but I'll let you make up your own mind. To aid in the unsettling vision, not that it's needed, is that according to eyewitness testimony, Snallygasters possess a solitary eye, large and threatening, set right in the centre of its forehead. Altogether, you're looking at a beast from beak to tail that reaches about 20 foot, and standing, I'm told it's 8 foot easy. And I've actually got a couple fun facts for you about this lizard fowl love child. Its hide is said to be worth $100,000 per square foot. Not just because it's the only material of its kind, but because it's claimed to be the only thing known that'll properly polish puckle shells. And the 26th President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, once considered postponing a safari in order to hunt the beast. Now trust me when I say this is a creature you've got to see with your own eyes. So you'll be wanting to head over to Frederick Country of Maryland, USA. That's where most of the recent sightings spawn. Folks say they see Snallygaster fly in and out of caves located deep in the southern mountains around the region. Also had a few farmers say they've found Snallygaster nests in their barns, laying eggs the size of whiskey barrels. I even heard from one fella had him stumble through me doors with a shake in his step. Said he spooked a Snallygaster by accident at work after he spotted something sleeping near his brick burning kiln around the Maryland city of Cumberland. And there's even tales of Snallygasters reaching as far as West Virginia. I had a lucky run-in with a party that way. Mentioned every winter they're catching tracks of the creature. You might want to hire a wagon for this expedition, adventurer. Maryland to West Virginia is a canny trek on foot. So do you fancy knowing what this eldritch griffin can do? To start, I'll say it straight. Those accounts I mentioned earlier were all from folk who'd been out walking at night. Except for the brick burner, he caught the creature in the sunny light of day. What I'm saying here is Snallygasters are nocturnal creatures, which is good news for you. No need to stalk cold, dark cemeteries in the dead of night like the Drekavac. For this quest, you'll get to enjoy the warm, sunny rays of day. Just make sure you've got cover or a party member on watch for when the night comes. Reports I've had my eyes over say Snallygasters have exceptional night vision, nigh on perfect. They may only have the one eye, but from what I've read, it's a bloody good eye. Folks say if you're out after dark, walking back after a few at the local, it don't matter if you're quick or creeping, this supernatural marble is going to catch you. And when it does, you won't even have time to think about reaching for your sword before it sweeps in and scoops you up. Although its wings are gigantic and height adjacent, Snallygasters are known to be unusually silent. You'll be looking at the ground, wondering why it's getting further and further away, till you feel the unmistakable sensation of tentacles tickling your chin. And speaking of those not-so-little wrigglers, it's widely documented that Snallygasters can manipulate this multiple of limbs entirely, using them to grapple or restrain its victims while it performs its most infamous and feared routine. Seems it's not just the wings the Snallygaster has in common with the humble bat. It's also got its hunger for blood. Only it's amplified by the old world magic that creates monsters like this. If you're unfortunate enough to be selected for an aerial tour of the US, then according to some of the earliest tales on the Snallygaster, it'll use its metallic beak to slit your throat with surgical precision. And it must be quite an intelligent creature, as folks who found the bodies say it's always the jugular that's targeted. Then the beast's remaining tongues will worm their way in and around the entry site, like a straw into a paper carton. They'll drink you dry, ensuring not a drop is spilt. Now I know that sounds pretty horrific. Hopeless even. I mean, your choices are either be lunch, or scramble around and fall to your death. But it's not all bad news. At least not for your loved ones. You see, law on the Snallygaster says they sustain themselves purely on a liquid diet. And after they've squeezed every last drop out of you, you're free to go. It's really rather quite nice of them when you think about it. Oh, you're definitely dead, mind. Yeah, this legion of muscular straws are kind of proficient at their job. And even if you manage to hide half a pint in your fingers and toes, well, the fall's going to get you instead. But if your armour's made of quality stuff, there should be enough of you left to send off for burial. Looking at your trappings, you might want to see the smithy before heading out on this one, my questionably dressed adventurer. There was one sound the Snallygaster's known to make, and hearing it could help you keep all your juice on the inside. Doesn't say when it lets it out, but according to scripture, Snallygaster are known to let out an astonishing squawk, described as sounding like the whistle from a locomotive. You bear that in mind next to me parading down the tracks. Might be the 11 o'clock to Oklahoma, or a giant Lovecraftian seagull that's found its next drink. So is that it? Are you condemned to a life running from train whistles? Not if I can help it. As always, I've come through with a few little tips on how to survive an encounter. Earlier, I briefly mentioned the Snallygaster's diet. Seems their favourite sip is an adult human, but they're also known to find livestock and children quite refreshing. Having one of these on your side on those midnight walks, it'll give you a 50-50 chance of survival. Or if you're a fan of the long game, you could wait the creature out. They're said to only live for 20 years. A drop in the ocean if you ask me. And to help keep them at bay, get yourself a heptagram. That's a 7-pointed star. Snallygasters are said to avoid anyone or thing spotted wearing the symbol. You can even paint it on the side of a building to convert the entire structure into a Snallygaster-free zone. If you can't get your hands on a heptagram, child or cow, try looking for a Ya Te Veo. They're like an upright dog, and one will cover in a later visit. Legend states that the mortal enemies of the Snallygaster, guaranteed to take the attention off all that lovely blood you're carrying round. Lastly, if you happen to know of any moonshine stills, you can rest easy round them. I found one story of moonshine fumes choking a Snallygaster as it flew over, caused it to crash into the drink and die immediately. Speaking of moonshine, let's get you a couple shots. Maybe your breath will scare the beast off. Hello again, listener. It's me, the man behind the mic. Much like my first ad, I have come dramatically underprepared. I can't even remember what I usually say. Oh, I know now. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a review. It really helps us. Everybody always says that it helps get the show out there. I'm not sure how, but if you could, I'd really appreciate it. And if you're finding us on YouTube, drop a comment. Let me know what you'd like to hear about, or if I've got any of these details wrong, or, better yet, how to correctly pronounce all those Slavic towns I definitely got wrong. Right, I think that'll do it for this little advert break. Let's get you back to the well-scripted tavern. There we go. That'll keep you safe from the octopus birdies. Shame it won't help with our next creature though. The Ya Te Veo, from South African folklore. If you're not familiar with the name, how about the translation? I see you already. Not ringing any bells? Well, maybe you've heard of the dog devouring tree, Brazilian death tree, Brazilian monkey trap tree, Mexican snake tree, the devil's snare, sawtooth shrub, or my favourite, vampire vine. Bet these titles are conjuring up all sorts of wild and witched cursed creatures, and I'd wager you're on the right track. So what we're dealing with here is what folks call a carnivorous plant. You might be familiar with vegetation going by the name of pitcher plant or perhaps a Venus flytrap. Well, the Ya Te Veo is just like them, except much, much bigger. And they eat a lot more than insects. Chronicles of the creature call it a tree or a shrub, but most agree it's got a short, thick trunk, described as a very sturdy base, with a mass of rope-like wriggling tentacles extending from its stunted base. They're making up the branches. At first, it sounds like this one's going to be pretty easy to spot. It's not every day you see a tree stump with squid parts, but as with all things that wear the mask of magic, it's evolved to disguise its most telling feature. The tentacles aren't grey or glowing purple like the creatures of the deep. They're said to be green or brown in colour, effortlessly blending them into the wooden lower half. Perhaps as a result of some cuttlefish DNA running through those roots. And the camouflage doesn't end there. Deeper tellings of Ya Te Veo say they've got leaves decorating their branches that supposedly resemble that of the agave plant. Long pointed pads kinda look like a short sword, and from what I've read, they're just as sharp. Or maybe you'll cross paths with another version of this scary sapling, where in place of razor sharp leaves, you'll come face to thorn with a terrifying arrangement of barbs, coating almost every inch of its tentacles. And you see that fella over there? He reckons its octopus adjacent parts oozes sap like slobber. Had a chat with him earlier, and he says they're drenched in the stuff, to the point you'll even see globs of the mess dripping down and off the tip. If you fancy yourself a bit of a botanist, the Ya Te Veo is said to sprout up all across Central and South America, with cousins in Africa, and even some of the shores off the Indian Ocean. Folks say they absolutely love the climates found in swamps and jungle territories, so make sure to pack your summer shell before heading out on this dangerous dendrochronology expedition. But before all that, lean in and spread your listening holes, for here's what you can expect in a tango with this tree. First is how it feeds. For this carnivorous tree is marked by a brutal combination of speed, strength, and a unique biological system of external digestion. The process of predation is as swift as it is savage, and recorded encounters consistently describe a pattern of entrapment, constriction, suffocation, and in some cases, complete consumption. Some reports note that the tree's tendrils make a hissing noise as they move, and that they move chaotically as well, without purpose. In multiple accounts from folk who've seen a Ya Te Veo, they say the movements are proximity triggered. If someone walks near, or worse, over its branches, which by some law may lay dormant on the ground until disturbed, at that moment they rap on the target with sudden murderous intent, initiating the fatal sequence. The grasping power of this creature's limbs is supported by a unique mechanism of suction. As well as barbs or razor leaves, the tendrils are known to have numerous infinitesimal mouths or suckers, said to remain closed until feeding begins. And once open, they'll receive the flesh directly as they cling to your skin. The resulting grip is not easily broken either. Damage to the flesh is a common consequence of resistance. Seems the only way to wriggle loose is to tear the skin from your skeleton. If you ain't got a will or way of tearing your own flesh apart, you'll begin to feel the tree tighten its hold, and that's when digestion begins. Unlike most carnivores, the Ya Te Veo doesn't consume its meal before digestion. Instead, it requires the aid of a secretion. That'll be the slobber we mentioned earlier. This substance appears to help with breaking down the captured creature externally before ingestion. But this ain't always the story. There are some folks that say the tree drinks the blood of the victims after crushing them and then releasing the mangled remains. In other cases, it's said to consume the body entirely, pulling the victim in and gulping them down whole. One version claims the tree may even use those discarded bodies as bait, leaving them visible to attract other curious humans. And accounts of ritual sacrifice add a cultural and anthropological layer to the tree's history. One detailed report I found described, and you'll have to forgive me again, the Mdoko tribe, who is said to offer a young woman as a sacrifice to the tree. During one such ritual, the plant's tendrils, described in this telling as quivering like starved serpents, descended upon the woman, and as they coiled around her arms and neck, she screamed a sound that was noted to resemble an awful laughter, before being entirely silenced, as the tendrils tightened, smothering her cries. The story ends by saying the tree consumed her with brutal energy and savage tenacity. This ain't one plant to prune, my green-thumbed adventurer. And while the tree appears stationary during the day, there were some folk that claim it can move on its roots, though this movement is very slow and typically only occurs at night. And while the tree appears stationary during the day, there were some folk who claim it can move around on its roots, though the movement is very, very slow, and, as I'm sure you've guessed, this has only really been recorded as occurring during the night. Well, what can I say to help calm your new and completely rational fear of plants? The Ya Te Veo seems to be one of the more dangerous creatures I've spoken of in this tavern, but as with every beast of myth or magic, there's always at least a few ways to spot and defend yourself against them. Firstly, take note of your environment. From what I've read, there's usually an absence of life around these territories. You won't see bees or butterflies wafting through the leaves, you won't see any birds' nests in the branches, and you'll definitely not spy critters of any creed running up and down the trunk. If there ain't life, it's likely a Ya Te Veo. And if you see a tree with branches strewn across the ground like old rope, that's also likely to be a Ya Te Veo. Trees don't do that. And now to kill it, you're going to need fire. That's the only course of action I recommend you take. You could give it a good shearing with a sword or something else sharp, but you'll need to get close for that. And this creature's got you on the reach. So pack some high-proof alcohol, a few good rags, and warm up your chucking arm. That's my surefire way to rid the lands of this hungry herb. And with that, we've finished with our last creature for the week. We've learned that getting a dog keeps the spooky ghost kids away, that moonshine saves lives, and that gardening may not be as relaxing as we previously thought. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern, so grab yourself one more drink for the road, and until next time, tread carefully, adventurer. You never know when you might wander into the weird